Hi everybody. I see this question coming often in forums or in the art community. My students also ask me all the time whether it's better to draw or paint from a photograph or to draw and paint from real life. Many of my students say that it's much more difficult for them to draw from real life because the model always moves and the light changes and everything is not fixed and moving all the time. And from photograph, they have other issues like the light. Sometimes the photograph is overexposed or underexposed, and then you don't see the nose, or maybe you don't see the eyes perfectly. The colors are very different from life. So what is better, to draw from life or to draw from a photograph? We will talk about this today. So this question is very difficult to answer, of course. In my opinion, drawing from a photograph or drawing from life doesn't really matter, because we want to interpret what we see and not exactly copy it. So it doesn't really matter if the subject moves or not moves. What's important is that we understand the subject and what we want to actually create from our imaginations, from our creativity. And based on that, make a decision on whether this area would be light or dark, or what exactly we want to do with it. To answer this question, maybe we should go back to the Renaissance time or even the Baroque period. Let's talk about what happened then, because they did not have any camera. Let's think for a second about the logistics that they had to go through, right? They had to go through massive logistics. They had to pick up the models, which they didn't have a lot of money, so they had to go probably down to the street and pick up some people and pay them. And then they need to actually pose them in the different ways that they wanted to have the painting be. And all sorts of stuff like that. This is very difficult, of course, because if this is a homeless person, maybe tomorrow he's not coming, maybe the day after he is coming, and people move all the time and they change. They didn't have a camera, so they couldn't actually place a lot of people and then pose them and then take a few photographs and then make it work like that. So afterwards they would go back to their studio and sit there and actually work it on the computer like we do these days. And then actually put it in front of them, maybe on a television or something, and then start painting. So in essence, instead of copying something that they constantly see, like in a photograph, they had to actually use a lot of their imagination and creativity and understand what exactly they want and position it and change it all the time and make it their own. Think of the painting of Sandro Botticelli, for example. This is completely something that was created out of his imagination. This is something that does not exist in real life. And if he had a picture of that, how would he do that? So he would have to go to a Photoshop and then recreate some imaginary scene and then understand how it works and then try to paint it a little bit and make sketches, and it would be completely different. If you don't have a computer and a camera, now you need to actually sit down and paint from your imagination and creativity, which is far more difficult, but much more rewarding. On the other hand, when you have a camera and you just snap a picture of somebody and you want to draw a portrait, now you have the person positioned as you like, and maybe you can take 100 pictures of him or her, and then select out of those photographs the one that you actually exactly like, and then use that. So the question is very, very difficult. Technically, for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, when a subject or a model sits in front of me, I look at them, I speak to them beforehand, quite a lot to understand the person. Maybe he's happy, sad type of person. Maybe he's an introvert. Maybe he's not speaking a lot. Maybe he's very giddy and jumpy and whatever his character is. So when you speak to somebody that is a model of yours, you learn to understand their character, and therefore you can actually project it and create it within your painting. Of course, you can speak to a model just like you do in real life, and then later on take snapshots with your camera and then paint them. But you paint them now with the understanding and the observation of their character, and now you are actually able to add your own creativity and understanding of them into your painting. So the answer to that is not really simple. It depends really about the person, the artist, and what exactly they want to do. We also need to remember that a photograph is not nature. It's something that is being worked out by the machine. The machine measures and averages all sorts of different aspects of the picture, the colors, the values, the focus, the light, of course, etc. And then actually out of that create something. This something does not look exactly like the person looks in reality. If you add to that post-production work on the photograph, then we add a lot of artificial elements into the photograph that does not exist. Of course, it's okay, it's no problem if that's what we want. But it does not reflect reality exactly. While when we sit in front of a model, we can always see them move, the movement of their muscles, their jaw, their face, their eyes. Everything is dynamic, everything is flowing. It's like this is nature. So this is the best way to really comprehend exactly the shape of a muscle or the shape of a jaw, and not force ourselves and constrict ourselves only to what we have in the photograph. But now we have something that moves, and we can actually relate to that, which is, in my opinion, add a lot of interesting facets to our ability to interpret the person that we actually paint. So it is more difficult, in my opinion, to paint from a photograph than to paint from real life, because from a photograph we cannot interpret anything. The person doesn't move, he's just frozen in time, and now we just have to actually try to follow up on the lights and the curves that we see in the photographs, and we can only try to imagine how his muscles move, how his face is constructed, etc., etc. We cannot see it in action. We can only imagine it, which is also fine and depends very much on your artistic development and what exactly you want to achieve in your own style of painting. So now that we understand different aspects of this process, we can actually make a decision. This decision doesn't have to be, I want to paint only from life or I want to paint only from a photograph. I myself like to speak to my models, to people that I want to paint, understand them a little bit, and then I like to take photographs of them and then sit with myself and interpret it during my paintings. And maybe the person is a very happy person, but in the photographs that I took, in the series of photographs, he looked a little bit not himself that day, maybe sad a little bit. But I know that person, so I can interpret it within the painting to make him look as I see him. Now remember, most of the paintings that you see, you do not understand or know the person that you see in front of you. All you see is the interpretation of the artist of that person. You don't even know that person most of the time. We don't know the Mona Lisa. We don't know how she looked like exactly, and maybe Da Vinci decided to paint her different than actually how she looks in life. Maybe not. We do not know. Nobody knows. But we also don't really care. What we want is to transfer the values and the understanding and the characteristic emotions, etc., of the person as we see it as artists. So the viewer can understand our interpretation and make an interpretation for himself on how he sees that character. So I hope this helps you understand better the difference between a photograph and life and how exactly we want to interpret this in our own paintings. Of course, it's very subjective and each one of you can interpret it in a different way. I would love to hear from you in your comments. What do you think about the subject? What do you think is more important or more difficult? Or what do you feel represent better your art when you draw a portrait or paint a portrait? Is it better from a photograph or from life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do that now. If you like that video, please press like. And I thank you very much, and I see you in the next video.